While stalking, exploit ground cover that minimizes the sound of your movement. That would include pine needles, which almost totally eliminate the sound of movement. It could be bare earth or rocks, and perhaps wet leaves. You could also exploit local sounds that help mask the sound of your movement. That would include the lapping of waves against a lake, falling rain, or gusting wind. While stalking, you may find that you have no alternative but to cross an area with dry leaves and twigs, but that doesn't mean that you abandon stealthiness. Normal walking creates a lot of noise. The proper way to move through noisy ground cover is number one, move slow. There's no hurry, there's no race going on. Secondly, you plan each step. Think in terms of it being a series of stepping stones that you're going along, stone to stone, step to step. And thirdly, toe walk. When you're going to that next planned step, test it with a forward toe. Make sure it can hold your weight, that it will not be noisy. If necessary, you can slightly move aside a twig or a leaf, and only then do you shift your balance. While you're stalking, don't waste your time looking for a whole deer. You'll be looking for part of a deer. Focus your attention on looking for something about the size of a basketball. It could be a deer's head, it could be its body facing you. You may see the movement of antlers against brush in the background. The deer could be bedded down, in which case, if it's facing you, it will look like a tree stump. Pay close attention to whatever looks like a tree stump. It could look like a log if it's laying sideways to you. Look very closely at anything that you think is a log. It could be standing. It'd be no higher than most likely 3 or 4 feet off the ground. Keep your focus very much on the ground though, because during daytime, the deer will very well be bedded down. Moving as quietly as possible. About every 2 or 3 minutes, pause where there's cover, concealment, especially shade, and this is a listening break and a watching break. The reason for this wait is that you've been moving quietly enough that a nearby deer did not hear you. Therefore, you're going to give that deer the opportunity to make enough noise that you'll hear it first and maybe get a shot. Logging trails, ATV trails, and fire trails usually have a good solid surface for stalking quietly, but pay close attention whenever you come to a curve. Go around the inside of the curve and very slowly so that if there's a deer visible, you've got your scope right on him. At times while you're stalking, you may encounter brush that's at about your eye level and it's too thick to see through. There could be a deer on the other side of it, but you can barely make it out, and for sure you might be able to determine whether or not it has antlers. That's why this kind of brush is called buckbrush. Well, the best way to handle it is to get down low enough to see through it where it's thinner. You could go down to a kneeling position. You could squat. Some hunters will even crawl. Pay close attention to high ground while stalking, especially hill crests and ridge lines, such as the one behind me. During the day, mature bucks like to bed down on high ground with a commanding view so they can detect approaching threats. As well, some bucks will walk a ridge line because it's less brushy up there and they can move quieter and a little easier. When you're looking from low ground to high ground, you could find that that deer has unwittingly silhouetted itself against the sky. That's a time to get out your mini binoculars and carefully scan back and forth along the ridge to see if there's a standing deer or bedded deer somewhere within your field of view. Deer are smart animals. They watch humans just as we try to watch deer. They see us form certain patterns, certain ways that we approach. They associate humans with roads and trails and houses. If you want to have a way to stalk into an area where you know deer are present, try to consider an unorthodox approach that a deer would never expect. In this stream, not only do I have a reasonable path, but I have the sound of the moving water to mask my movement.